beside me. Tell me what they've done.
Pope John Paul II was born and raised in Poland during a rare period of national freedom which ended initially under Nazi occupation and then communist rule. Instilled with a firm religious belief by his father, he attended school and then university where he balanced studies with an interest in acting and religiously inspired poetry. Although his family initially fled during World War II, the Russian invasion prompted him to return home and study in secret, taking a laborer's job to avoid deportation. A first-hand witness to the cruelty of Nazi occupation, he joined the cultural resistance movement where he began studying for the priesthood. He was ordained in 1946 and over the next few years wrote doctoral texts, pursued a higher level of education, taught Catholicism, and encouraged religious freedom. The result was a professorship in Lublin, a body of work that influenced the reforms of Pope Paul VI and a reputation for promoting and supporting his church in an oppressive Soviet regime. In 1963 he was made Archbishop of Krakow. 4 years later, in 1967, he was made a cardinal. During the next few years, he worked ceaselessly in Poland, gaining concessions from the communist government and widespread support from the public, whilst also contributing to the Vatican policy. Having been a somewhat surprising choice of Pope, John Paul II ruled for over 20 years. John Paul II is almost universally praised for attempting to build greater understandings between Judaism, Islam, and Christianity, as well as visiting over 100 countries and promoting nonviolent revolution against oppressive regimes, especially communism, in whose collapse he is sometimes given a personal and vital role. His main tool was travel, and his personal presence drew massive crowds, although it also exposed him to danger. In 1981, John Paul II was shot and severely wounded in an attempted assassination. However, this did not deter the Pope, and even non-Catholics admired his willingness to speak out against governments while stood within their country. Towards the end of his life, John Paul II was affected by several health problems, including cancer and an ongoing battle against Parkinson's disease, but such problems barely dented his schedule. Indeed, in March 2000, the Pope made one of his most noteworthy trips, visiting Jerusalem, where he met Jewish and Muslim leaders and visited some of the city's most holy places. However, in early 2005, his health declined once again, and after a long struggle, he died in the Vatican on April 2, 2005, aged 84. Pope John Paul II was a great person of peace and promoted social justice in many ways. One of his most memorable ways in how he promoted peace was that in 1981, when Pope John Paul II was shot and severely wounded by an assassination attempt, instead of having little remorse and hatred towards the man, after his recovery he went to visit the man in prison that tried to take his life and forgive him for what he had done. We will be right back after a word from our sponsors.
Hey, do you want to feel so energetic? Try Power Thirst, energy drinks for people who need gratuitous amounts of energy. With all new flavors like chocolate energy. It's like adding chocolate to an electrical store. Sound the alarm. You're gonna be uncomfortably energetic. What's that? You want strawberry? Well, how about raw berry? Made with lightning. Real lightning.
Welcome back, and now back to the life of Pope John Paul II. Pope John Paul II voiced his opinion on many of the 11 social justice principles. For instance, in the principle of human dignity, in one of his documents he states, "The dignity of the person is manifested in all its radiance when the person's origin and destiny are considered, created by God in his image and likeness, as well as redeemed by the most precious blood of Christ. The person is called to be a child in the Son, and a living temple of the Spirit, destined for eternal life of blessed communion with God. For this very reason, every violation of the personal dignity of the human being cries out in vengeance to God and is offense against the Creator of the individual." In the issue of respect for life, through his teachings, he constantly stresses that abortion is wrong and morally unacceptable. In regarding the principle of rights and duties, Pope John Paul II lists the following rights in this document. Among the most important of these rights mentioned must be made the right to life, an integral part of which is the right of the child to develop in the mother's womb from the moment of conception, the right to life in a united family and in a moral environment conducive to the growth of the child's personality, the right to develop one's intelligence and freedom in seeking and knowing the truth, the right to share the work which makes wise use of the earth's material resources, and to derive from that work the means to support oneself and one's dependents, and the right to freely establish a family, to have and rear children through the responsible exercise of one's sexuality. In a certain sense, the source and synthesis of these rights is religious freedom, understood as the right to live in the truth of one's faith and in conformity with one's transcendent dignity as a person. And finally, on the principle of solidarity, Pope John Paul II wrote, "The fact that men and women in various parts of the world feel personally affected by the injustices and violations of human rights committed in distant countries which perhaps they will never visit, is a further sign of reality transformed into awareness, thus acquiring a moral connotation. It is a firm and persevering determination to commit oneself to the common good, that is to say, the good of all and of each individual, because we are all really responsible for each other."